Okay, so we've got a chop saw here, or mitre saw as it's sometimes known as. The various different functions. If we just go through them to start with, we've got the blade with a guard wrapped around it. So if we take a look at the blade to start with, notice that there's a fair few teeth on this blade, and they are cross-cutting teeth, so the angle's very shallow, so they're made for cutting across the timber. So most cuts on a chop saw, you'll be cutting across the grain, so the grain's going that way, cutting across it, so hence why it's common to have a cross-cutting blade in a chop saw. We've got adjustable bed for any different angle.
Just explain how you did that, Andy, because it's what you're pressing at the minute.
So at the moment on this particular saw we've got a release button here. If you push that down, it will help you move to different settings. These notches are predetermined settings, so if I wanted to go to 0 degrees, I'd come to somewhere near it and then push it, and that would lock into a predetermined setting. If you wanted to do a cut on something that's not a predetermined setting, so if I wanted to do a 12-degree cut, I could move this round to 12 degrees, release it, and then push this down to lock the bed in place on a setting that's not a predetermined one.
Excellent.
So we've got two forms of locking off. We've got the standard lock off. It's always good practice to put the secondary lock on as well to make sure your bed doesn't move.
And what don't you do with that?
You don't just not push it and just drag it across, because then it'll wear out all the settings and the lock won't work very well. So we've got, like I say, the various different settings. This particular saw will move all the way across to 60 degrees, so that's a lot greater than many cuts that you get on a lot of chop saws. Traditionally, most of them will only bump to about 50, and it's pretty standard that some of the older ones will go to 45 in both directions. So you can move it all the way across to 50 degrees to the right, or 51 and 60 degrees to the left. Traditionally, most cuts, if you're doing sort of second fixing, will be on a 45 degree for mitres, or 0, which is going to give you a 90 degree cut from the back. Parts and functions and stuff, we've mentioned the guard. On this particular chop saw, it's got a release catch here. If you don't pull that, the saw won't go down and the guard won't move. So if you wanted to start it, you push that away with your finger, and that will bring the guard back. So you haven't got to try and manually operate the guard. And similarly there, we've got a trigger that will start the saw under the guard there, so it's quite good ergonomics that your finger's naturally going to be there in order to pull it, in order to operate the guard. So that's good ergonomics on this particular saw. We've got the motor, we've got a dust extraction port here, where you're able to attach your LEV, so any dust that comes out of the saw will be collected here, run through the back of the saw and out the dust extraction point. This particular model has got a slide function, so it'll enable you to cut straight down on a small piece of timber, or pull it out and cut over a larger section. So it's recommended if you're cutting a larger section like this I-beam joist, that you will come out, start the saw and push it towards the bed of the saw. So if you were to pull it down, pull it this way, you're going to have a risk of pulling the material off the back of that fence. So you want to be working, pushing towards this back fence and down to the base. So the put in motion will be that way across there. We'll go through that in a minute. We've mentioned the angle of the bed. You've also got an option on these saws. If you move these guardrails back, you've got an option here to adjust the tilt of the saw. So on these ones, you've got this motion on both sides. So if I do it on this side, so you can see on that releases the arm, and then again it's got predetermined settings. So now it's locked in at 22.5 degrees worth of tilt there. If we do it again, the next predetermined setting is 33. And if we try and go down to the 45.
Want to move it to the other side, or?
No, got it predetermined setting on 45. So you can make a compound mitre cut across across there. I've got a guard in the way at the moment this side, but
Drop it to other side.
across to a 45-degree setting there, and I can move that round to say 15-degree and do a compound cut.
Just explain what a compound cut is, please, Andy.
Okay, so go back to 0 and go 0 on there. We'll have a 90-degree cut, which will cut straight down the timber. If you wanted a compound cut, so it will move that off of to a 15-degree cut there, but it would also still cut 90 degrees down that direction. If you wanted a compound cut, we'll move that over to another angle. It will cut across this section of timber at that other angle. We'll have a go at that when we fire the saw up in a minute.
What aspects of safety are required when using a chop saw?
Okay, so standard PPE for most power tools apply. So we've got hearing protection and eye protection. We've got, obviously, do not put your fingers anywhere near the blade. Secondary, we've got another, on most saws you have this line on both sides, which is keep your hands outside of that line. So any holding of any timber wants to be done this side of that line. So you can't have your fingers anywhere inside of that line, and that goes all the way around the edge of the saw. So if you were to try and cut a small piece of timber, particularly like this one, most saws have the ability to clamp timber down so it's secured in place and you don't need your fingers inside there.
What happens if you've got a short piece and you wanted to cut it?
Like I say, we've got an option of clamping it down there, or if it's really short, you can use a push stick as well as a clamp, but realistically you don't want to be cutting any, you should get a bigger piece of timber.
And we've got a push stick just there, yeah?
Yeah, so like I say, you can potentially hold it on a secondary device with a push stick. It's got at least a 300mm length. Hold it away. So we've got the push stick here that's a minimum of 300mm there to hold any material you need to if it was small. And similarly, we've got a 300mm safety zone between the 2 points of having your hands inside there. Okay, so we've been through the basic functions. This particular one, we've got an LEV system attached to the saw, so it takes as much dust extraction as possible away.
And you're going to demonstrate that in a second, aren't you?
Yeah, so this LEV turns on automatically when the saw fires up. So we'll put the required PP on, we'll do a few cuts so you can see the operation happening. Okay, so if we do a standard cut first. Notice we've got a 90-degree cut across there and a 90-degree cut across the top of the timber, and the dust extraction kicked in.
Can you just say that again, because you couldn't hear you over the dust extraction?
Okay, so we've got, from a 0-degree setting on both, we've got a 90-degree cut across the top, a 90-degree cut down the face of the timber.
Yeah.
If we move the bed setting to one of the other angles, so say this one particularly a 15-degree, do a cut. We've got 15-degree cut across the top, and still got a 90-degree cut across this face of the timber. If we move on to the complex mitre now, so if we go tilt the saw over to sort of 15 degrees, so we'll go 22. Be sure to move the guardrail back so it doesn't catch the saw. So now, because we've got this compound cut, we've got a 15-degree cut across that edge side of the timber and a 15-degree cut along that edge, so that's known as a compound cut, which you'll often try to do on a jack rafter or something like that when you do roofing. Put it back to center position.
Is there any other functions that it does?
The other function that we mentioned before about if you're cutting larger timber, it's good practice to bring the saw out and push it away in, so this would look something along these lines. material down from any safety features. Just to make a cut and you wanted additional.
What about trenching for housing joints and
Yeah, so
stuff
we've
like
got
that?
an option here on this particular saw where we can trench. So if we bring this lever down, we'll notice this, it moves that out of the way. You'll see that the saw stops at a certain distance, which is all fully adjustable. You can wind the adjustment up or down to have different settings on height, but that will enable you to trench cut.
Can you just demonstrate that?
Yeah, so we'll put the PPE back on. We've got the trench option in place. We've only cut a section of the way through the timber. It's going to be cleaned off with a chisel, and then we can also potentially house out or notch out timber using the trenching
Excellent.
attachment. Okay. Thank you.